Check it out!
Escape reality with Matt Z.
Well, Dak, here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellent.
3, 2, 1, and we are live. Welcome, Mr. Brian Breezy Gregg, the 2021 mayoral candidate for Edmonton. And I think it goes without question, the most interesting candidate, I think that's for sure, of them all. And first and foremost, I do want to say thank you for taking the time to come on Off the Dome and talk with me and kind of learn each other's perspectives on everything. I really do appreciate this.
Well, thank you, Matt. You're quite welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been like one of my goals to try to connect with the young people in Edmonton. Mm-hmm. You're the future. I'm the past. And it's really nice to be here. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I appreciate you so much for coming on. It's going to be a lot of fun, I feel like. So just to dive kind of right into it, just so I can start to understand who you are, can you tell us basically what led to you being where you are in life right now, running for mayor? What was the push behind that?
Well, it's been part of my life is to always be watching what's going on and paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I've lived here in the city all my life, and I'm not too happy about some of the things, the way things are going in our city. And so I decided when Don Iveson wasn't going to run again that I was going to step in and take this opportunity to speak up for the things that I think are important.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you, in the grand scheme of things, would you deem your, didn't win sadly, but do you think that your campaign was a success?
Yes and no. For me, it was personally a success in many ways, like in the insights that I got into how the city is run and what the people in my city think, because I talked to so many people. I got so many questionnaires from lobby groups, so I understand where that's coming from. And I also got to get to know the other candidates, because I think there must have been at least 10 forums. If only a couple of them were in person, but Zoom forums like this. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of gains in it for me, and now I'm busy writing a report that I want to put out, saying what I thought happened and what I learned from it, and where I think we should be moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind me asking, what kind of ideas are you going to be putting down on this report, if you're allowed to talk about it or want to discuss it before you release it?
Oh, sure. Well, since it's my report, I can do whatever I want.
Exactly. Love it.
Well, at the end of the report, I'm just going to have a log of I've already got that log made up of all the interest groups that contacted me, and when all the media that contacted me, and it's just sort of a summary of everything that the demands that were put on me. Mm-hmm. Then I'm also going to make a comment that I wasn't expecting to go the way it did. I thought there would be more of an opportunity to debate issues. Mm-hmm. And there really wasn't much debate of the issues. Like, pretty well the public conversation in Edmonton during the campaign, which started January 1st, campaign really, I mean, the media attention was on COVID, and then a lot on the American politics, and then the federal election came along, and so all of these things just sucked up all the big media's attention, and there was very little discussion about our civic issues, and pretty well the whole conversation boiled down to Nicola is bad, so to avoid that vote,
yeah, which I feel like you find that in a lot of politics nowadays. I'll vote for this person because that person scares me, and this person seems to be the biggest threat to the other person. So I feel like that happens a lot in politics. Even with the federal election that happened, a lot of people that I talked to said, "Well, I don't necessarily align with this this party's beliefs, but I want to get Trudeau out, so I would vote for them." And I feel like that's a big flaw in our system. Don't you agree?
I think it's something that we have to be aware of uh, uh, if we want to have better government. Like we have to really do whatever we can to engage people in talking about the issues. So try to make it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like, is there a climate emergency? And if there is, like, how come we're not talking about it and how we're going to deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to make that interesting for people. There's so much, so many interesting things and things to grab our attention.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I kind of want to go back to your report. When you had said they were asking, quote unquote, like unrealistic demands of you, what were some of these demands that they were asking of you to do?
Oh, um, well, I don't know if they were unrealistic, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just like very demanding to have so many like Google form questionnaires or monkeys, what do you call it, survey monkey questionnaires thrown
Yeah,
at you
yeah.
by every lobby group, and they have like 10, 20 questions that they want you to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had taken the time to look at my website, the answers were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely,
it's
yeah.
kind of like they're asking me to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
Like
No,
I've
for
already
sure.
done the work, I've made an explanation, and so it's just they're using a robot to send out this message to 11 people,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have a robot to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do. I had my website, but they weren't considering it.
Mm-hmm. And to kind of go with more with your report, did you feel you were disproportionately represented by the media, or do you think all the mayoral candidates were, then the whole mayoral election itself was disrepresentative by the media and just kind of got washed away? Or do you feel like it was just you yourself?
Oh, it definitely wasn't me myself.
Mm-hmm.
Very little was covered about the mayoral race
Mm-hmm.
at all,
Yeah.
and then there were several forums where they, and I know this is sort of standard procedure when you have like a lot of candidates, that you check a poll and you just get the top candidates to come to debates or forums and exclude everyone else.
Yeah.
So I wasn't happy with being excluded, but I understood, okay, that's the way some people view it.
Mm-hmm.
And but on the other hand, there were certain organizations that did give us all a voice, which I really appreciated.
Definitely.
But I don't think there was any like conscious thing to try to exclude me. Although
Mm-hmm.
I did feel like the first approach I got from the big media was Ched Radio in February. Like it got me on the 1st of March to be on the radio show.
Okay. Yeah.
Radio show, and like as well as I do, Ched Talk Radio is pretty right wing,
Mm-hmm.
and I am not.
Yeah.
So I thought this was going to be fun because I like debating things.
Yeah.
And I felt that the interviewer was setting up to make me look like an idiot,
Mm-hmm.
and so I kind of cut him off at the passes because he mentioned the main things on my platform, like getting big money out of politics, free transit, free Wi-Fi, and he said, I knew he was going to say, "Oh, how are you going to pay for all of these things?"
Mm-hmm.
So before he had a chance to say that, I said, your listeners out there in Ched Radio Land are going to be wondering how I'm going to pay for all of this.
Yeah.
And I said, I have to be honest. I said, I think that we have to raise taxes, and so we can have better services.
Mm-hmm.
So, I came right out, and before he could ask me the question, I answered it for him. So I felt like I went across like really people who were listening to the broadcast said I came across really well.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and to the audience. And I also sort of knew the kind of audience I was talking to. And
Yeah.
then at the end of the show, I charmed them by asking them that I said, well, when I also said, when I was young, I used to listen to Ched Radio all the time. It was a big music station back then.
Yeah.
I said, and it isn't now. But I was wondering, is it okay still to do music on the show? And he said, well, I guess so, sure. I said, well, I'd like to just give you the chorus to my theme song for
Yeah.
this race for mayor. And I went, they're rolling their eyes in their minds. Listen to the banjos. They're rolling their eyes in their minds. I can feel it in my guts. I know they think I'm nuts. They're rolling their eyes in their minds. And the people out in Shetland are rolling their eyes in their awesome minds.
Love that. That is awesome. Oh, that is awesome. Well, it's good that you at least ended it on a positive note with them. But I think it's smart of you also to know your audience as well too, and you to bring up those issues right up before they can ask you in a weird way. Because I know even for myself, you're watching politics or sports, for example, and these media reporters are trying to word their questions to get the wrong answer out of a player and trick them into saying something that they don't really believe. And I think that's wrong. So that was smart of you to get ahead of the curve there. So I applaud you for that. And big question thing here though. But what do you think is main source of Edmonton's problems with regards to politics and everything going on in the city?
Oh, well, I think that it's the involvement of big money in our politics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just the whole election process, it's at all levels, like it's based on money.
Mm-hmm.
Like the candidates go out and they raise funds, and poor people don't give them that money.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. I mean, so
exactly.
So who are they representing? Right?
Yeah, the companies.
Yeah, and in our civic politics, the rules changed in 2015. Notley changed the rules, but before that, business like corporations and unions could donate to candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look back, like the disclosures, you can go to Edmonton elections and look back, and you see, oh yeah, all these candidates, they were funded by big developers and big construction companies.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we have? Like a lot of roads, and like we have 4 times as many roads as Montreal.
Wow.
Per capita. And
probably about 20 times the amount of potholes as well too.
Well, yeah, if more roads, more potholes, right?
Exactly.
But, yeah. I mean, I love driving. I've had the luxury of having a key to a car in my pocket, mm-hmm. like since I was 17.
Awesome.
There was one brief period of a year when mm-hmm. I didn't have a vehicle, but I mean that's a luxury to be able to like just get up and zoom miles away.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely, yeah. I agree with that as well too. I think a lot of people in today's Western society are very privileged and unaware of their privilege. You look at countries in the Middle East that have been caught up in war for how many years now, and to them it's like those luxuries don't even exist. And I think it's something that we forget as a society, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I was going to mention about my Ched interview is that they never asked me back.
Oh, really?
And closer to the election or anything. And so I just wonder if that was because they saw that that I was only going to advantage my own agenda if they had me on.
Yeah, so and they didn't want that.
Right? Mm-hmm, but definitely. They did reach out to me several times to buy advertising from them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting how it works sometimes. Yeah. So I guess like politics is always about the negatives. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think is right in Edmonton right now with regards to the politics? What do you think they're doing right?
Well, I think that some of the plans that Iverson brought in, like he was big on bringing in plans but not getting too much done. Mm-hmm. But some of the plans are great, like the plan for building 15-minute neighborhoods. I think is really, really a good idea. Just it's better economics. It's better for the environment.
What are these 15-minute neighborhoods?
Oh yeah, okay. Well,
I've not heard of this before.
Okay, I love this idea.
Yeah.
This is to build your neighborhood so that in 15 minutes you can walk to all your services that you need.
Oh, okay.
So you have
Yeah.
everything in your own neighborhood. And I extend this to social services too. Like I talked about this a bit during the race, is that I want us to have there's 153 communities in the city. I want to build 153 community hubs, social service hubs that have four things. They have a little emergency shelter, maybe only 10 beds or something. That's all you might need if you have 153 of them, right?
Yeah.
And have those shelters so they can accommodate families as well as just single people, so that a mom with some kids can have a shelter when she needs. But these shelters would be like temporary emergency shelters. As soon as they'd be staffed with at least two people, 24/7, and as soon as somebody was there, the staff would be working with them to find them better housing, like some affordable housing, so that they could be transitioned out of there within a week.
Okay.
So it's an emergency facility, right? One of four things at this hub. The other three things would be, there would be like a soup kitchen, food bank, not run by a charity, but public service.
Yeah.
Where people could get food 24/7, and then the third thing would be to have a clinic with a doctor and a nurse 24/7, where people could get basic medical care, and also where we could have like safe supply for addicts, and also like counseling and things like that for them. So they'd be that would be the third thing, the medical aspect, like a medical services. And then the fourth thing would be a branch of the library, which would be the educational link. And there would be like same thing, 24/7 computer terminals, two librarians there to help people who didn't know how to use the computers, so people could go there and access at the education system through the public library. So I want to build like 153 of these in the city, so that everybody can just walk to get those services. It would take away the need for having a basic income. And I argue for having basic services as opposed to basic income, because when you have a basic income, the person gets a check, and then a bunch of predators come and try to take that money away from them. All kinds of predators. It can be like criminals with drugs or sex. It could be people saying trinkets and services, and what I mean. But they gambling, all these things. But where if you give someone a meal, no one can take that away from them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if they give them somebody a good night's sleep, no one can take that away from them.
Absolutely.
You give them some good medicine, no one can take that away from you. And you give them a good book to read, they read it, no one can take it away from them. So I don't. That's my like add on to the 15-minute neighborhood. But that's a good thing that the city has in its plan, is to try to change, and this will help us to travel less. And this is another part of what I talk about, is like traveling less means burning less, and burning less is the solution to the climate emergency.
Definitely. I love that idea. I've never heard of that, because I've always heard about people talking about universal basic income. And I've toyed with the idea of I support it or not, and I'm still not too sure, because I feel like if you do give people universal income, it'll benefit some people, but then there are also people who will take that and create no ambition in their life and just take that money and spend it on either drugs or not creating a healthy environment for themselves. But I do like the idea of universal services, because then all your basic needs are met, and that's a very smart idea. Now, was that you said that's an addition to Don Iverson's initial 15-minute plan or 15-minute neighborhood?
I don't think in his 15-minute plan he was specifying building these service hubs, social
He
service hubs.
he was just
And
talking
maybe
about
we're
grocery
talking,
stores, etc.,
yeah,
and stuff like
yeah,
that. Okay, yeah.
commercial services
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. I think like right now, I think we have like 23 public library branches.
Mm-hmm.
So it still is like you. Some people have to go pretty far to get to the library.
Definitely. I know, from my location, I'm not even too sure where the nearest library actually is. It's probably downtown somewhere, though. But what is your perspective on homelessness and how to fix the homeless problem as well, too, since we're talking about social services? Do you think that they're doing a good job right now? Inadequate job? How do you feel about it?
Oh, they're doing a terrible job right
Terrible.
now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's uh, it's not just the city's fault because it's a funding issue. Like uh,
Mm-hmm.
the city has to get funding from the province and from the federal government
Mm-hmm.
to properly cope with the housing problem.
Mm-hmm.
But uh, I mean, if they were doing a good job, there wouldn't be any people on the streets, or very few.
Yeah.
And I think with something like 2,000 and something people in the city right now, they're without proper shelter.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, it's the same. They have a good plan, but they don't have the money. And I think that this is one of the things that I hope to debate uh, is that there's kind of two models for providing social services. There's a charity model where you rely on private charities to amass donations and then look after the problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other is to have public social services where you use tax revenue to pay for providing the services. So the charity model has a big flaw in it, and in that only compassionate people donate to charities. So that leaves all the non-compassionate people, and unfortunately, there are some non-compassionate people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
there's a lot of them
uh,
out there.
uh, they get a free ride. Like they don't contribute at all to taking care of the people who can't take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what part of what society is about, is that we're going to take care of the children and the old people and the sick people and disabled people, as well as the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, uh, and frankly, with the businesses, I feel like business is for grown-ups, and that businesses can take care of themselves and others.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they're powerful things. They don't really need to be babied, and
Mm-hmm.
and any businesses that think they need to be babied, maybe they should think again about their business plan, because I really do think it is for grown-ups. It's not for.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
uh,
To kind of switch gears, and I want to ask you about the free transit as well too. That's an idea. As a student, I feel like that's something that would benefit me, not having to pay for those U passes. What was your plan around offering free transit for Edmontonians?
okay, well, initially, I was talking about free transit. It's a good idea because it's going to get more people traveling on public transit, so we'll burn less.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm always on to burn less. My climate emergency plan is burn less.
Yeah.
Anything that can make less burning is good. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it.
So that's initially what the reason behind having mass transit was for a burn less
Mm-hmm.
solution. But when I first started talking about it, several transit workers had contacted me and said, "Hey, Breezy, like we tried free transit during the first part of the pandemic. It was a disaster. Like all these homeless people piled onto the buses,
Yeah.
and it was just a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I put a caveat on saying, like, first of all, before we can move to free transit, we have to get a handle on the homeless problem,
Mm-hmm.
because if people had a better place to go for shelter, they wouldn't be going to a bus for shelter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's critical that we do that. But then, as the thing moved along, I was thinking, uh, because of the pandemic, we see that people can work from home. So there's less of a need to have as much transit as we had before.
Mhm.
And when I go out on the street doing my street shows, like I was doing a street show every day,
Yeah.
and I'd see the buses going by, and there hardly anybody on them.
Hmm.
And a couple of times I went into the LRT. I wasn't comfortable in it because it's going indoors. I don't like to go indoors until these waves are over.
Hmm.
But same thing, like nobody's riding on the LRT.
Hmm.
Like like you see these trains with like three people, a
Hmm.
great big huge train, three people, right? Like the transit system that we have is it's not flexible to adapt to a situation like this.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, what are we doing? So then I think, okay, well, really the way transit's going to go in the next 20 years, it's going to become like autonomous vehicles that are navigated by AI. Like that we're
Hmm.
not going to have people driving cars anymore.
Yeah.
And it's going to be super efficient because when you get in your car now and you tell your phone where you want to go, and your phone tells you, oh, go 500 meters, turn here.
Hmm.
Blah, blah. Well, the phone's going to be telling the robot that's driving your car that.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
not only that, it's going to be telling your car, hey, the first green light that we got to go to is going to be green at this time. So this just speed up only this much, and then you'll get there when the light's green.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and so we won't have traffic lights anymore. We won't have like
Hmm.
controlling traffic by people looking at colored lights. And it'll all be like when you get in and say where you want to go, your whole route will be planned before you even leave, and
Hmm.
where you're going to accelerate and decelerate, so that you barely have to ever put on the brakes.
Hmm.
And because every time we put on the brakes, we waste energy.
Yeah.
And it's like you stop, start, stop, start. You think like you drive across town, how many times do you stop and start?
Hmm.
It's just like, oh. And I really got this feeling about how much we're burning. Like when I did my concerts, like I go by West Edmonton Mall, 170th Street and 87th Avenue. Like there's 8 lanes going one way and 6 going the other, and
Hmm.
turning lanes. A lot of cars, and the
Yeah.
light changes, and oh, this
Hmm.
huge cloud of exhaust comes at me.
Yeah.
It's like, woo, wow, like where are all these people going and what are they doing? Like, it's like this is a lot of burning going on, and it's not just our city. It's like cities all over the planet. This
Yeah.
is going on. It's like, so that's my thing on free public transit is I think that we should be planning on having an autonomous system, and moving to it. We should be like a leader in the world,
Hmm.
and building that kind of a transportation system where once you're in our city, you should be able to travel anywhere in our city for free.
Hmm.
If you don't have your own pod, autonomous vehicle pod, you can just summon a public pod
Hmm.
to come and get you and take you where you go. Just like the scooters now, like everybody has the scooters,
Yeah.
and just leave it where you end up, except that autonomous vehicles can drive themselves back to a charger or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to. But
Yeah.
that's my idea now for free public system is autonomous vehicles, and you can just imagine like where there's heavy traffic, freeways and things like that. That the vehicles will bunch up into a bundle,
Hmm.
just like a bundle of data on the internet.
Hmm.
Just have this bundle that will go through the intersection when the light is theoretically green,
Yeah.
and then there'll be a pause, and then there'll be a bundle coming the other way through, and every car will be just timing to join up to whatever bundle it needs to, just with a tiny acceleration, tiny deceleration.
I actually love that. So like you're thinking very, very long term, which I actually love. And I feel like a lot of candidates, regardless if they're going for mayor or federal or whatever it is, a lot of them are only thinking about 4 years. It's like, what can I accomplish in 4 years to make a name for myself so that I can maybe get another 4 years? And at the end of the day, I'm not too sure of a way to work around that, because then if you give somebody 10 years, then they could take the abuse out of that. And then if they do it for 1 year only, then, there's too much turnover rate. But I love that your vision of the city is 20 years down the road. And especially with autonomous vehicles, because you see like people like Elon Musk working on that with Tesla on highways. They have their cars that are able to drive. And I think it's a cool idea. I love it, about how cars will be able to take us from point A to point B, and we won't even have to be in the driver's seat. We'll sit in the back and read the newspaper or do something like that. And on top of it being able to reduce emissions, I think we could almost completely eliminate car accidents as well too, bearing a few
Exactly.
circumstances. But yeah, that's another positive as well too to that.
Do you know how much money we spend like on spinal cord surgery and everything from car accidents, and how many people died? Like more people die than in the
Ridiculous.
wars,
Yeah.
and we just that's just the way it is. Like
Mhm.
cars grow on trees; it's part of nature.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. The government has invested a lot of money and resources into giving us the ability to drive from point A to point B. And like that's another area that people forget about the costs is the medical industry. Like how much of those costs are associated with car accidents besides the cost of trying to maintain these roads, create these roads, enforce the roads with police and everything. So I I love the long-term vision that you definitely have about the transportation system in Edmonton. And I also love too how you have addressed the situation of um, essentially the ETS buses and the LRT lines not being very safe for people. Because I know a lot of people who go to the university, perfect opportunity to take the LRT. It goes right underneath, and a lot of students don't take the LRT because they don't feel safe taking it. And I feel like by you saying that, hey, this is a problem that we need to address before we start expanding the transit, it's very important
Yeah,
perspective to have on it.
yeah. I even think now that due to the pandemic, it's also just not safe to share spaces
Hmm.
with where we share pathogens from our respiratory systems.
Hmm.
But now I'm thinking about the LRT line that they're planning from downtown to West Edmonton Mall.
Hmm.
I think it would be smart to like put that on hold indefinitely, and
Definitely.
instead of building a railway there, uh, build a non-powered transportation freeway where you would have like they've got all the real estate uh, bought up and secured and everything to put that line through.
Hmm.
The real estate's there. So instead of building a railway, I want them to build like uh, a jogging track, a cross country skiing track, lanes for cross country
Yeah,
skiing, uh,
biking.
biking,
Hmm.
anything that's unpowered, right?
Hmm.
I, like
The
an
scooter
unpowered
lane as
freeway.
well too. Even why not?
No, I wouldn't put a scooter lane in
No scooters.
because they're powered, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But anything is unpowered, and I would put in an ice lane, like I would actually build an ice track, like maybe like 4 or 5 meters wide,
Hmm.
with ice machines built in, so that in the
Yep.
winter time, like you could guarantee you would have ice from like end of October till the end of March.
Hmm. Yeah.
And because like with climate change coming here, I think sometimes you might have too warm of weather to keep ice there naturally. But
Hmm.
it wouldn't cost that much to put in. It'd just be like a long skating rink,
Hmm.
and and then in the summertime, that could be like extra bike lanes, or whatever. But this is my idea, to build this freeway with jogging, cross country skiing,
Hmm.
skating. Uh, like I guess skateboards should be allowed. Uh, but I think it should be a zone where there's no powered vehicles.
Hmm. It's a very like nature zone almost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, and it would cost like a fraction of the cost of
definitely.
railway.
Well, and I think a big problem with LRT was that, they built the initial LRT and then they expanded it towards Nate. And
Yeah.
then by the time they even had that fixed or solved, because I know there's a lot of times because I'm at Nate, I'd be
Yeah.
sitting there at the lights, no trains going by for 2 minutes, and then you just hear the ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
So like obviously they didn't have that figured out. And then they started building the south side expansion. And that's gone how many years and how many dollars over budget. And now it's not even open at this point still. And they're already planning for the West End one, where it's like, well, you guys haven't necessarily proven that you're able to build these LRT lines on budget, on time, and effective. Do you feel like that's a valid perspective on it, or?
Exactly. And
Mhm.
if we're actually moving to this 15-minute neighborhood, what is it going to be the need to have this mass transit
Mhm.
to bring everybody into the city core to work? Like we'll be working hopefully closer to our homes.
Mhm. And that's what the pandemic has shown, that we're able to do that. Even if we only have to go in a few times a week, we're still able to do majority of our work from home, especially with applications like Zoom and Teams. They give us that ability to collaborate online virtually. But to kind of go to the pandemic now, I know it's been brought up a few times though. What do you think what's your perspective on how the government has handled the pandemic? Because I know there's a lot of contradicting things, especially with the conservative government at provincial level, and then the federal government, the liberal government at federal level. So I feel like there's a lot of contradictory news and perspectives on how it was handled.
Right. Well, the city did the best it could. I think, like
Mm-hmm.
they were right on the case of trying to have preventative measures in place.
Definitely.
But I don't know. Like I don't know where our legislators' heads are at. Like right away when the pandemic started, I knew that we should be like locking down, like serious locking down,
Mm-hmm.
like uh, uh, and they just there was too much of a pressure from the business communities. Hey, we're going to go bankrupt, and if people can't come and do business as usual,
Mm-hmm.
and to me that was a symptom of this idea in our economy of having everything cut so mean and lean, and like every business they're mortgaged up to the hilt, and they're totally dependent on their cash flow. If the cash flow stops for a week, they're in trouble, right? They have no like capacity to 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 deal with any kind of a problem in their business, including a big problem like a pandemic like this.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all in this position of where they're just like on a fine line of being able to stay in business. Like while they are in business, they're making a good profit, but as soon as the business is gone, ooh, like how do I pay the rent? Now the landlord is going to evict me, and so forth and so on. So there's
Mm-hmm.
this big pressure, uh, and we know like the UCP is a big cheerleader for business. So they had to listen to their base, saying, "Oh yeah, unlock, let's get everybody out there French kissing as much as they can."
Yeah.
Uh,
Build
it's
up that herd immunity.
yeah, right. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's very tragic. I shouldn't be laughing because it's quite tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people have lost their lives that didn't need to, and then
Definitely, yeah.
you get to think about the people saying, "Oh, well, they're just old people anyway," and they're just like a drain on the system, so that like they were going to die anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but there's lots of old people who are still valuable.
Yeah, like yourself included.
I think
Yeah.
I made myself in that. Just because
Yeah.
one of the valuable things we have is we were around and saw stuff happen that you guys
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen happen. Like
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
actually saw a horse go down my alley pulling a wagon with the milk bottles in it.
Wow. What year was that?
Like in the mid '50s, I lived in
Wow.
Belgravia from when I just was born until I guess I took finished grade 2 at McKernan.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had just one horse pulling this sort of
Mm-hmm.
square wagon,
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So like my parents have lived in Edmonton since I think about the 80s or something like that. And when I'm out with them throughout the city, they're always like, "Oh, I remember when this used to be a field," and "Oh, I remember this. I remember when white mud didn't exist." And for somebody who's lived here since the 50s, how crazy has the change been of the city? Because obviously, even just the last 10 years for society itself, we didn't have phones 10 years ago. 20 years ago, the internet was barely a thing. But like in the 50s, like how much has Edmonton changed? And do you ever reflect on that yourself?
oh well, the change is huge. Like I told you, like I was in McKernan, like I went to McKernan for grade 2. Then my dad bought a farmhouse on the very west side of Jasper Place. Like Jasper Place wasn't part of the Edmonton. It was a separate municipality.
Yeah.
and my dad bought this big farm. It was Farmer Love's house. I liked it. It was Farmer Love,
Yeah.
and he had sold his farm to the developers to make Meadowlark Park, and my dad bought this big old farmhouse, and it was great because we had like a woods with a stream in it beside our house, and we had this great big huge long, like we had like 3 acre yard, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so nice, right? And all to the west was farmland,
Mm-hmm.
and and uh, while we were living there, they built the Meadowlark Park and the new school and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was right on the edge. I could see that like the development of the suburb being built, but my window faced it east. My bedroom window on the second story faced east, so I looked across the city. It was kind of high there,
Yeah.
so I could see like all the way to downtown. And in downtown, the tallest building downtown, there was no tall buildings except for downtown.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the tallest building there was this box annex that they built on the McDonald Hotel. It's not there; they demolished it. But that
Mhm.
was that. And then the next highest building, I think, was the Tegler building, which was 8 stories high.
Wow.
And all the other buildings were like 4 or less stories.
Yeah.
And so I looked out my window, and as the years passed by, all of a sudden more and more buildings started coming up.
Yeah.
It was a picture out my window, and like the first they started, on Jasper Avenue and 124th Street, where Jasper Avenue ends. They started building high rises there,
Mm-hmm.
and like apartment buildings. Like the first high rises were built there.
Mm-hmm.
Along the river valley, top edge of the river valley. So I got to watch that, and then the next everything was downtown in those days. Like that was the only a place to go shopping really. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you had a few grocery stores and this and that, but all the main shopping, all the big box stores were downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And then they built Westmount Mall, and then they built Bonnie Doon Mall, and so then it started sort of spreading out, And then the big deal was when they built West Edmonton Mall, of course. But here's something that's really tragic,
Mm-hmm.
and real is, I think anyway, is where Grant MacEwan College is and downtown,
Yeah. Yeah.
downtown campus, and Oliver Square shopping and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the train yards. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I knew there was like a small tunnel. I think my dad used to call it the rat hole or something like
That's
that.
the rat hole. Yeah, the rat hole went underneath the train yards.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
there was a train yards that went all the way from like about 97th Street all the way down to about 120th Street.
Yeah.
And it was like a big rail yard, like maybe 15 tracks wide,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the CN yards, and CN decided that they were going to just move all our yards up to the Yellowhead yard where it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's the one that's just north of the old airport, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened is we had like where the CN Tower is,
Yes. Yeah.
is downtown.
Mhm.
That was the train station. Okay.
Oh.
You could go to the CN
Okay.
Tower. You could get on the train and you could go to Montreal. You could get on the train and go to Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
But like we had like transcontinental transportation right to the center of our town.
Just like that. Yeah.
But not only that, the train tracks went all the way. There was a line that went from downtown up to St. Albert. Like now part of that is a sort of a bike trail and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we had like rail access all the way from the Clairview station.
Yes. Yeah.
That's part of the old CN line.
Oh, okay.
So the line came all the way through there downtown, along the 24th Center, angled up, and it went out by sort of along the St. Albert trailer out to St. Albert.
Oh.
So we had like rail transit line all the way to St. Albert, all the way to Clairview. What did we do? The city didn't buy the property from CN. They let CN just sell it out to developers. and they built over top of the train tracks. They built all these, like, if the city had bought it,
Wow.
if the city had bought it, and they could have said, okay, you can build, but you have to leave the tracks in place. So we have we had transit all the way to St. Albert, and now they spend billions of dollars to try to build transit when we already had it.
That's
And
ridiculous.
isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah, that's
And,
ridiculous that they would do
and
something like that.
yeah, like things like that is just like I don't believe it. Like I wish that I had been more involved in politics back then. I would have yelled and screamed and said, "Come on, you guys, like
Mm-hmm.
smarten up." And I even feel that a little bit about the airport. Is like what would we do if there was like some real kind of disaster and we needed to get supplies into our city? Like, what are
Mm-hmm.
we going to do to fly them to the international and put them on trucks and drive them into the city? Whereas
Mm-hmm.
we could just be flying them right into the core of our city
Mm-hmm.
at that airport. Like I don't know. Like,
Yeah, no. It seems like a lot of things go backwards 3 steps, then go forward 1 step. And I know my dad's been very vocal about that as well too at times.
yeah.
To kind of like go a bit more personal for you though, when did you get into politics?
Oh, I was born in politics.
You were born into it?
Yeah, like yeah. My dad was Peter Lougheed's finance chairman,
Oh, no way.
and my mom was the president of the Alberta Progressive Conservative Women's Association.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
So like they were always having coffee parties with the candidate and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be the quiet kid and sitting in the corner listening to everything and not saying anything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so and I saw, one of the things that sort of formed my politics was when Peter Lougheed first came to power. My dad came back from a policy convention or a convention at the Banff School of Fine Arts, and he was all excited. He said, we had this American advertising firm up there, and they have these signs for us with this fluorescent orange and blue, and the slogan, the team." He said, and he's all excited about this. And then sure enough, like all the signs came out for the campaign, and they did look very sharp and everything,
Yeah.
But at the time I thought, something wrong here. Like, democracy is not about getting a foreign company to come in with signs and you win election. It's supposed to be like talking about the issues. So I'm still talking about that now. We should be
Yeah.
talking about the issues,
Yeah.
and not having some like winning an election by having like a good PR guy.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah. Yeah.
need to talk about what we're doing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, that's super interesting that you kind of always been into politics. I think what's really important about you and your perspective on politics is, regardless if you feel like you're not getting necessarily the votes to back you up or whatever it may be, but I feel like what you're bringing to the table is something that, I don't want to say ahead of its time, but the foundation of something that may turn into something bigger. And I feel like that, to give you some more motivation, like you're very influential with your perspective on things, and I feel like that with you out there and campaigning and spreading the word and spreading the love that you want to spread, it will translate until two seeds that grow into other people's minds, which will then blossom into the trees and the ideas that you have. And I love that about you.
I know, and that's why I'm so happy to be talking with you today, because like the young people are the hope for the future. And so if I've spent like a lot of my life trying to think deeply about the issues, and I may have learned some things from that deep reflection, if I can pass that on to younger people,
Yeah, and I hope this podcast accomplishes your goals. One final question. What advice would you give, since the younger generation is growing up and taking over eventually at some point, what advice would you give to the younger generation?
Well, I think that we should really put a lot of importance on doing exactly what you and I are doing right now. And that is just one-on-one or maybe in small groups,
Mm-hmm.
talk about what's happening, reflect on what's happening, because we can't just always rely on the internet, what we read on the internet. We can't rely on what's in books all the time. We have to actually just think for ourselves and try to figure out. We'll consult all those other things, but we also have to just say, like, what do we think? Like, what's really happening? Is the sky really blue or is it red?
Yeah.
Let's go with on our own. Like, someone else will be telling me.
Yeah.
We need more people to try to understand things on their own without looking to somebody else, and also to pay attention to what you're paying attention to,
Mm-hmm.
because, like, I try to explain this to some of my friends, like they get mad and they say, "Oh, people are just stupid. That's the problem, right?" And the thing is, like, intelligence is like a muscle. Like, you can have a big muscle or a small muscle or anything in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if if you have a small muscle, you can strengthen it by using it, and as it's the same with your mind. You can strengthen it by using it, but
Mhm.
also, uh, if you focus, like, if you really focus on concentrating on something, like a person who's got a lower IQ can understand something complex if they spend more time on it. So where we're putting our attention is really important. Like, if our attention, you can have a genius, his attention's all over the place, he's never going to accomplish very much of anything.
Definitely, yeah.
And then you can take someone less than a genius like myself, and I will, like, focus for a long time on
Yeah.
something, and I'll gain an understanding. So I try to. That's what I'd like to try to yell people. Yell, tell young people is, like, check out what you're focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is your focus? Like,
Yeah.
how
Where are you
how do
putting your
you
energy?
yeah, and how do you expend your time? Like, what do you use your time for? Because that's the most precious thing we have, is our time.
Mm-hmm. That was inspirational. That was beautiful, actually, what you just said there. I think that's the perfect thing to end this podcast on.